I'd like to welcome Cindy to our little conversation today. We're going to have a conversation with a carer about some of the things that go on in their lives. And before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on different Aboriginal countries. I'm on Wiradjuri country out in central West New South Wales. And Cindy, where are you at?
Gubbi Gubbi country in Brisbane.
Okay, that's great. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and all the people past and present that are still on the lands and doing what they do just to enjoy their lives and to live their lives. So what we're going to talk about today is things that can happen along the way in our life, and how do you adapt to such a thing as a brain injury? You've come along normal everyday life, and then something's happened. You care for somebody in your life. How did you initially adapt once this happened?
Well, to be honest, I think that I'm still adapting.
Yeah.
I think it's just a continuous thing. But initially, it was a really big learning curve for me. I suppose that, look, it was hard, and still some days it is hard. I felt like initially I was on this roller coaster of like, some days I was like, yes, I can do this, I'm able, and then, either during the day or the next day I'd be just like, oh, I can't do this, like, and I just think that I feel like, as the time goes on and progresses, things get easier. And I think that you need to be like gentle with yourself um, to just not worry if you do something wrong
Yes.
because we're all learning. We're all, and it's everything's new to us. And I think that I just had to say to myself, it's okay. We're going to get better at this and practice really. Like for me, like initially, the first night that I brought Malcolm home, because he has a brain injury, but that's also affected his mobility. So I showered him, and it took us like an hour. And afterwards, I just about burst into tears because I felt so inadequate with all of that. And but as time went on, it became easier, and now we've got this whole routine down, and we can knock it over in 25 minutes, from start to finish, and it's no problems at all. We kind of, and I suppose that's just what I had to learn, is that it's okay, it's going to get better. And I suppose that for me to adapt, I am a person that needs information. So I research, I ask questions, I join Facebook groups. Actually, that was a really big help. And sometimes, Facebook groups, some of the things that aren't relevant to you, and I just flick past it. But then sometimes there is information there, and you kind of go, oh, okay, that's good. That's a little bit of information that can help me. And I suppose that's sort of, and reading books about things as well. So for me, information and knowledge was essential for my able to adapt to it. Yeah, I suppose that's, yeah.
Look, that's such a great broad description on what I just asked you. And I think the big takeaway is that you're not hard on yourself. And I think people as carers are hard on themselves so often. And the fact that you research and you want to know more, and I think that benefits both you and the person that you care for and love. So
Yeah.
You just make it sound so easy, but we do know it's not. Definitely not.
And I'm definitely hard on myself. But I try not to be, I suppose.
Yeah.
I have to try and give myself grace.
That's great. That's a great word to use. And I saw that yesterday somewhere else too. And I thought that is such a great word for us to remember. What are some of the main effects that your husband has, and how do you both handle it? And the effects I'm talking about are from the ABI.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Some I still don't think that I handle it well.
Yeah.
Some days I do, and then other days yeah, he's I suppose apart from the physical, there's quite a lot of cognitive for him. But I have seen a big improvement, with him. Um, over the last 18 months. And I think that, I feel like that we're still sort of newbies at all of this. But um, his processing and his logic and reasoning has pretty much gone. So, so for that, that's really hard to try and talk to someone when their logic and reasoning is gone. So I just have to remember this when I'm conversing with him. And I also need to remember that he has a brain injury and to be aware of that when I'm talking to him, but not allow that to affect like his behaviors. Like, I know that it does affect his behaviors, but
Yeah.
sometimes um, his behaviors are more than just the brain injury. And like, sometimes he'll blame all the behaviors on the brain injury, and some of them is actually just like, no, like, yes, you have a brain injury, but no, you don't need to speak to me like that,
Yeah.
sort of thing. So trying to filter that a little bit,
Yeah.
which is really hard to do.
Yeah. So it really put some boundaries up as well. And I think
Yeah.
that's something people as carers don't realise, that a boundary is still important, even though you're caring for somebody. And yes, like you said, some of it is part of brain injury, but some of it isn't. And having that boundary there is protecting you, and it's also protecting the person you care for, because in the long run it could become not a good situation.
No, that's right. And I think, I also had to learn a different way of responding. So, and like initially it would be just like you'd fire up because he was, he would say something kind of thing that was totally illogical, and so you'd be like, but then kind of, so I had to try and think, okay, actually, when I respond, I'm responding to someone with a brain injury rather than my normal go-to response before the brain injury, I suppose. So I personally had to learn how to respond differently, and I mean, I can't say that I'm perfect because I definitely not. And some days I think, oh, I was so horrible today because I just, I'll take it personally and then act like that. But yeah, I just think that sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah. So this is really also giving you an opportunity for growth. And
Yeah.
sometimes beautiful things come out of tragedy. So it's really good to hear that you can see that you're talking to somebody who has a brain injury. So you're responding to them in that way. So you're not taking it personally. And so, yeah, that's
Yeah.
such growth. Can you tell me about the experiences finding support and services for your husband? Were there lots of services, and were they easy to find? Did the rehabilitation centre help you find them? Have you found them yourself?
Yeah. I found it difficult getting services, finding things, I have done a lot of research, looked online, from people talking, things like that. There was a little bit like, I suppose that for Malcolm, he is now part of the NDIS, so that opened up some services that we probably wouldn't be getting. But look, the social worker at the hospital um, gave us some, but they don't cover a lot. And then the rehabilitation team gave us a few, but a lot of it was talking to people, again, asking questions, researching, things like that. Yeah, I have found that there is services out there, but sometimes it's hard, and I don't think it's easy yeah, to
Yes,
find
so
sometimes.
you've got to really dig deep and do your research again. Otherwise, you could be sitting in a situation where there could be a little bit of improvement, and because you don't know where to get it from, nothing's changing.
Yeah.
Leading on from that question, what about yourself? And you've already really talked about some of the things that you've done, which is understanding yourself and reacting differently. How do you take care of yourself?
I have to be really intentional with my friendships. So I think sometimes you kind of get into this bubble, I suppose, at home, because you're at home a lot, because I'm not working at the moment because I had to resign from my job. So sometimes, it's a bit of an effort to keep contact with my friends. And I've been absolutely blessed to have quite a few really supportive friends. But being intentional in texting them and keeping that communication lines open, organising times when I can go out and meet with them for coffee, that for me is one of my things that I love to do. And so I feel that that's sort of taking care of myself by doing that, but also just communicating with someone, with friends and girlfriends kind of thing, and just chatting about, whatever.
Yeah,
It also
yeah,
just helps you to relax and to feel nurtured, I suppose, as
yes,
well.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's great. And having those friends that you know you are safe with is another important thing.
yeah,
I do know there are other people not as fortunate that don't have that safe person. So you've found the safe people, and you've encouraged the friendship to keep going. So that's good. You mentioned work, and I know a while back on one of our Facebook chats, you'd mentioned something about work.
mm.
How are you approaching your return to work? Because as you know, work hours may not be flexible in some places.
No, I'm finding that a little bit of a challenge. There is plenty of jobs out there, but most of the jobs ask for flexibility, for being able to be available for a lot of hours, or being able to cover holidays, and that's just something that I can't do. What I've kind of come to the conclusion is, and again, I'm very fortunate that I can be a little bit picky, is that I've said, okay, my what my maximum is going to be is 2 days. I can't be flexible. So now I just look at the positions that only have that availability, even though they probably aren't what I would love to do. And I see all these jobs that I know I could absolutely do, but I have to be able to have a job where it works for us. And also a job that doesn't demand too much of me. Like, I can't now give so much of myself in a job and then come home exhausted, because then I have to then turn around and be able to be there for my husband. So I kind of looking at jobs that are a little bit less responsibility, I suppose, than my previous jobs that I used to have. So that's sort of how I'm approaching it. And I've just been thinking, I just look online and things like that. And I just think, well, if that's meant to be, then that's the way that it's going to be. And in the meantime, I can just put my time into caring for my husband, I suppose. That's how I'm approaching it anyway.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And there are businesses now that do understand people are carers, and there are businesses that do allow flexibility. So I'm quite sure that when that right job turns up, you'll get it,
Yeah.
because it sounds to me like you've got a lot to give. All right. Well, thanks, Cindy, for having this chat. I'm sure what we've spoken about is very relevant to many other people out there. And I will let you go and have a talk to your husband that just popped in, and also
Thank you.
pat that lovely little puppy dog of yours. And